Technology, not only here at the middle school, but in all of our schools, despite the very good work of the school committee and the town's support, technology in our system continues to lag behind that of other school districts. You are currently sitting in the large group room, which was originally constructed as a performing arts center. We do not use it as such. We're using this essentially as a directed study program at this point, again, because of the space and program needs. There's a need to look at the basic infrastructure of the school. The windows are not up to current standards. We need to look at flooring material, particularly on the second floor. Many of the tiles are worn and chipped, and there is a very definite need to look at our hot water supply. This building is not readily handicap accessible except through the main entrance. You cannot get to the second floor, nor can you get to the lower part of this room. Parking continues to be a problem here at the middle school. When we have large events, evening conferences or programs, we are constantly needing to remind visitors that they need to park at the high school or down off of Oakdale so that as not to block emergency access. And again, as we spoke earlier, there is a need to evict, I guess, the central office to provide some additional space. Turning to the high school, it's very surprising for us to even mention the high school here because many people remember as if it was yesterday that the high school was completely renovated in 1988 and 1989. There is a need to come back and take a second look at the high school. The program and enrollment needs continue to impact that building. We're not looking necessarily at renovations because it is a beautiful facility. But in terms of its capacity to support current and future program and enrollment needs, it's certainly going to be strained. The projected enrollments at the high school will put it over 800 plus students, and this will only be at 800, assuming that anywhere from 10 to 15% of our students leave from the 8th grade into 9th grade and go to private school. If there is a downward movement, that is to say more students remain here at North Reading High School, then that 800 number will certainly increase. As you can see, 700 students in grades 6 through 8. This is a 4-year school, so it could easily approach in the upper 800s. Let me give you a walkthrough in terms of the scope of the feasibility study of the high school. This is not in any order of priority, but our cafeteria was closed a year ago because of overcrowding. We're currently in a temporary situation where a portion of the school, the seniors will eat in the auditorium down front, or in the good weather, we ask them if they're allowed to eat outside in the courtyard. So we need to look at the cafeteria space, the dining facilities at that school. The kitchen also is one of the central providers to other cafeterias in our school district. There is definitely a need to look at the need for classroom space and also science labs. Our athletic facilities, gym, locker rooms are not up to current standards, and there's a need to take a look at those facilities, including an assessment of the athletic fields. I've mentioned technology again and again. For our school system to be competitive with other school districts, it's essential that particularly at the high school, we look closely at how classrooms and other facilities can be supported. Mentioned performing arts. This is an integral part of our program. Again, there's a need to examine this. We also have some current space that is not being utilized, in my judgment, in the best manner. Shop program, industrial arts, is not part of our comprehensive program today, but there is a large space at the high school that could be reconfigured to be more used to a more practical, in a practical manner. And similarly, the home economics room. Home economics is not taught in our high school curriculum. We're currently using that as a reading room, but again, there are stoves and sinks and lab setups that could be reconfigured. There's no room for any sense of meeting other than in the cafeteria. What was at one point rooms for meetings have been taken over as classrooms, and again, most meetings either occur in the library or in the cafeteria. interior. So very little large space where people can sit down at tables. So this is the scope of the work. We hope to get underway and to complete that task by September and be able to report back on the secondary school study.
At this particular juncture, I'd like to call upon Dave Hanlon, who's our Superintendent of Public Works, to address the facility needs of the Department of Public Works complex, the Spindler complex down on Chestnut Street. Mr. Hanlon.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everybody. This is not a high priority at the present time. If you looked at the bar chart, timing chart, we're probably out 2005 before this project would be considered. What is driving even to visit addressing the DPW facility and an expansion is really, it doesn't exist at the DPW site presently. It's at the public safety site. It's the mechanics area or the lack of area that they have to address maintenance and repair of their vehicles, both police and fire. This has been an ongoing discussion. I've been here 9 years, and this was discussion before I got here, and since I have, and it kind of comes in waves. And this obviously was the opportunity to encapsulate it in the overall assessment of public facilities in terms of need. Quite frankly, Public Works could use a lot of improvements in there and expansion, but unselfishly, really the need today is to get that mechanic and that service area out of there, or build something adequate there or someplace else. From a practical standpoint, would it be better to centralize all the fleet maintenance activities of the town? Public Works, police, fire, school? The answer is certainly. And where is the best site for that? The Public Works site is the best site to centralize. Now, 3 years ago, this is an ongoing process, as I expressed to the folks at the committee a few years ago, this site was asleep. And now everybody wants to be there for all kinds of reasons. Up until 3 years ago, you have a multi-acreage parcel of land surrounded for the most part by wetlands and buffer zones, obviously. You have a NEP, a New England Power transmission line that cuts it in half, and that's not very visible to you folks unless you drive up now to the new Reading Municipal Light Substation. All those woods have been cleared. And forward from the power, behind the power lines, there was nothing but woods. And then forward to the power lines, there was, you would hit some storage area that we have called yard storage, where we burn, we keep pipe and so forth, sands and gravels. We reclaim old asphalt materials and make it into gravel. That's out of the public eye. We keep it clean. As you come over to the recycling center, obviously that's direct public access, and that's what you folks see, those of you that are volunteer recyclers. And then down at the foot of the little slope, of course, is the DPW facility, and everything is there. We centralize our entire operations there. All people report there in the morning. They leave in the afternoon, they check back after lunch, and they leave in the evening. All the equipment's assigned there, all the materials assigned there, even the water department. That's obviously for control and accountability. What was asked was if we could centralize all the fleet there. Now, you folks also see the new above-ground fuel, centralized fuel system. That was, hey, you know, we can do the fuel, can we do the mechanics, can we do the bags? The effort is to accommodate RMLD, Bell Atlantic, and future wastewater discharge. That's one of the sites from studies we've already done that's been depicted for approximately 150 to 200,000 gallons per day of wastewater discharge. Think about a plant that treats sewage and then discharges it into the ground just like a great big, your own home, your own leaching field. The Berry property is the other site. The rear portion of the site behind the New England power lines is the site we want to hold for that process. Coming forward then, if you look at the 6 acres of RMLD, Bell Atlantic, our existing operations, recycling center, the wetlands, there's not a lot of room, and there isn't room enough to build one new building for everybody. I mean, everybody meaning the mechanics, operations, parking, storage of all the materials. We can't do that. So then we looked at the initial need, the need right now of the mechanic, the fleet mechanic, to have space. Our own public works building, because its operations and storage is very tight, we went out and hired an architect, earth-tech out of Wellesley, for a space needs study that was approved at town meeting a year ago. They came in and assisted us so that we would not become biased in this. We would just look at the space. What are the space requirements for a total operation? And they helped us through a couple of different scenarios. One was trying to get it in as much as one building as possible. The next was to just split off a separate facility on the site for the public safety mechanics area. That presentation was made a few weeks ago to the members of F.U.M.P present. And even though in general they endorsed the concept of a phasing program, $5.2 million to come out and ask for this facility, a new facility, giving all the other priorities, we're realistic. So was there an option to phase it? And there was approximately a $1.2 million figure to basically build one building to accommodate fleet maintenance. In general, again, it was received okay because at least it was on a centralized site, but they wanted us to go back and take another look at it and see if we could combine at least the mechanics with the DPW mechanics so everybody could be in one building. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. We do have wetland, we do have flood mitigation, we have a lot of constraints because those of you that know the site, it's very tight. But that's our goal. Our goal right now, we're taking it back. We've talked to the public safety folks, especially the fire, because they got the biggest stuff. Fire trucks, if you look at not only space needs, but administrative and operational control, and you see a conflict between a public works director in the middle of a snowstorm wanting his space or her space, and a fire chief needing their space, someone's not going to get out of there alive. I mean, it's just it's a tremendous conflict in an emergency situation. You can't have that. So areas have to be cleared, and we're talking big areas. And we're talking also 125 pieces of equipment, 82 pieces of rolling stock. That means anything that has a license plate on it. And 40 plus pieces of small engine, like lawnmowers and so forth. You put that all together with all the folks that have to maintain it and run it, plus sand, salt, pipe storage, all that goes with DPW operations. You quickly see that becomes a very tight site. The other thing I'm concerned about in the long term is to make sure the footprint of the total opportunities there are not, we don't lock ourselves in. We don't go forward and build a structure that eventually becomes in the way or locks up other portions of land that we could have access to because we move too quick, we move too big, we move too small, the wrong location. So we're being very cautious about this. And at this point in time, I will tell you that we're trying to come in at probably something between 1.2 and 1.5 million for phase 1 initiative, which will at best consolidate the mechanics with the DPW mechanics, and at the worst situation, have a separate building close to them to accommodate the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hanlon. The next phase of the program here is the Murphy Center East and Police Station reuse, and we'll call on Town Administrator Mr. Younger again just to give us a brief overview on those two particular facilities.